Oh, let's see. Where's Mike? Hang on. I don't see Mike. Where's Mike going at?
Yeah, he's here.
Mike's here.
Oh, there he is. How are you? I didn't see you on my
Hello.
ledger here.
Todd, are you
now
recording?
I will be in just a moment. So just alerting the chair, I'm going to be in recording in just a moment. Okay.
Okay, go ahead.
Very good. And there we go.
Recording in progress.
All right. Good evening, everyone. This is the Planning Board, Wednesday, April 5th, 2023. Todd, if you could do roll call for attendance, appreciate it.
Sure thing. I will begin with Chair Pete Driscoll.
I'm present.
Bar.
Present.
Bob.
Here.
Eric.
Here.
And Mike.
Here.
Very good. All present and attending, sir.
Great. First agenda item is town planner report. So Todd, if you want to
Sure thing.
share anything with us, we'd be happy to listen.
Yes. Just a quick heads up, as I've already alluded to before, previously, shortly before the meeting began. I did just receive, as of 6:52, so exactly what, 8 minutes or no, 10 minutes now. I did just receive a correspondence from Mr. Motha relating to his item tonight. He is going to be seeking an extension. He'll be seeking a continuance rather to a future meeting date. Additionally, when it comes to agenda items up for discussion, possibly not on the next meeting, but likely the 1st of May or the middle of May. I would like to begin some discussion relating to some bylaw revision concepts, just kind of get some initial thoughts on some sorely needed bylaw revisions, especially as whether they're bylaw revisions or subdivision control regs. For example, adopting the 81Q provision that requires subdivisions and the developers of said subdivisions to hold roadways contained within that unfinished subdivision to the same standard as municipal roadways until such time those roadways are accepted by town at town meeting. Additionally, we should also take another look at the more cutting edge forms and more best practice solutions towards our open space development patterns, and have more neighborhood holistic approach towards set development patterns, and taking a look at the regs that correspond to that strategy. Things like increasing the amount of required open space for any open space development. That's an item that has quite a lot of traction and precedent established within neighborhood analogous towns. There are plenty of other provisions that I think should be that are easily sought out, that should be used as an inspiration point, and a wheel that doesn't need to be invented, but we should adopt it, if that makes sense. So that's a broader subject for likely the middle of May or somewhere along that time. Also, if I recall, Bob has reached out to Mr. Randall Arendt, who is a highly regarded author, and is on the forefront of that related bucolic open space development protection. He has several codes that I think are worth more than just a first look at. And I'll be drafting those and condensing some of that into some more digestible pieces. And we can take a look at those overviews and see which ones, in the board's opinion, would be a good fit for Bolton going forward in the next 10 to 15 years, especially as our master plan is in the middle of the throes. So aside from that, everything is going well. I do know that we are in the middle of, well, not in the middle, I'd say we're at the initial stages of selecting a staff person to begin on July 1 to help provide administrative support to both my office as well as Rebecca's, shared ideally evenly between the two of us, which is something that is sorely needed. And that'll really kind of free my hands to really kind of get into the fun part of planning, and that's actually the provision, construction, and adoption. That's where the rubber hits the road. That's where it gets fun. But aside from that, everything is going well. When we have our next, by the time we have our next meeting, I will have submitted our first round of invoices to be submitted for repayment and from the master plan. But that's not really germane to this particular board. But we're likely to get some substantive movement by at least the first or second meeting of May, I would say. Very exciting. Very exciting.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I mean, I think penciling in some time on the first May meeting to start discussing, stuff would be good. I know when I, last year when I, had a first conversation with Valerie after, becoming chair, we were kind of talking about things, and she was saying the same thing about, it just gets tied up with so much of the permitting stuff.
Yeah.
But, so I understand that, but hopefully, we can start thinking about it now and have plenty of time to, if there's anything to bring to town meeting in 2024.
That's exactly right. The administrative element of this entire career, it's necessary, but it's not all that fulfilling in its drudgery, I would say. The end result is fulfilling, but it's not really the creation of or improvement that most planners get into this line of work for. So having someone to come in to help kind of take some of the pressure off of the mundane tasks goes a long way, and it's something that'll allow us to be far more productive, I think. But aside from that, that's all I got for you, sir.
I just wanted to point out that somebody I talked to that is interested, he's on Austin Groner. I know it's not an agenda item, so I don't think we could talk to him or anything, but he's present. So
we do have him. I'm so sorry to interrupt to the chair, if I may. We do have Austin at the second of the discussion items present on the agenda. So we have Mr. Mike Lau as well as Austin Groner there as well.
Okay,
so
great.
We have some time carved out for him. Never you mind.
Oh, okay, cool.
You got
it. Yeah, just one question, Todd, before we move on. Related to the Century Mills as-built review, I saw the email from Stephen at Niche on the last Monday.
Yes.
Saying that he got started on the letter and then got a little sidetracked. So
yes,
he said he was going to provide it this week, which I guess would have been last week, but we haven't received that yet. No.
Not yet. No, I'm waiting also for a formalized invoice that we can then, at the $2,400 level that was quoted. We haven't received that either. And as soon as he and his team have completed that as-built review, I'm pretty sure you'll be able to hear me yelling out of excitement from my office once we receive it. So once I receive that as-built letter, I'll of course pay the invoice and then alert everyone on the board and share that letter as soon as I receive it.
Okay. Yeah, maybe if you don't hear for a week.
Yes, indeed.
Okay. Great. All right, unless anyone else has any general questions for Todd, we can move on to the first discussion items, which are with a couple of potential candidates for the planning board. So I can just, say very briefly, first of all, thank you very much for expressing interest and coming to talk to us. This is a volunteer board, and work closely with the town planner, and the work. Not sure, how familiar you may or may not be with planning board work, but some of it is permit related to subdivisions and common driveways and scenic road items and other special permits that the board has purview over in town, and a fair amount of monitoring of active subdivision projects. There's a few that are going on in town. Some of those have been more challenging than others over the years to deal with, and others go along very well, pretty well. And then, as Todd was kind of referring to, the other, part of what we do is, planning, trying to think about, long-term planning. The town is in the middle of, an update to its master plan that I think has been many years since we've had one. So there's a master plan steering committee, and that's kind of been going on, and periodically get have input or get updates on that, and we look at things like what changes we can make to bylaws or rules and regulations to either address issues that have come up and been a problem, or things that are brought to us from residences, or to try to stimulate or different businesses or different types of developments. And some of those, in Bolton go better than others. I mean, there are, as I'm sure it's a fairly small rural town, and there's a lot of folks in Bolton who want to keep it that way and don't want any change. And so in my time on the board, I've kind of learned that a lot of it's about balancing, that, and because change is inevitable and future is inevitable. So just wanted to say a few words, from my perspective, and others can share as well. But I think we can give. It looks like we have two candidates, Mike Lau and Austin Groner. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing your names incorrectly or not. I apologize. But Mike, since you're first on the list, if you want to give us just a little introduction of yourself and what you're here for, and why you're interested in the planning board.
Sure. Mike Lau, obviously I'd moved to Bolton in, I guess it was November. I purchased a house. I moved from California. I grew up in Southern New Hampshire, moved out to California for work for about 15 years. And recently my wife and 2 kids, and moved back to Massachusetts and selected Bolton to settle down. So that's a little bit about me. And then the reason I'm thinking about joining the board is I want to be involved. I selected Bolton to be here for the long term and wanted a way to get involved. I saw the opening, read a little bit about the board, and I thought I had some relevant experience through work. I work in construction and engineering for large infrastructure projects for my whole career. So I have a little bit of relevant experience, and thought maybe I could use some experience that I have to help out the town that I moved to.
Great, thanks. Any questions you have for us at all?
You know what? Not really anything specific. I feel like I have a lot of questions about just how the role will work out, from my understanding of the 2 meetings a week and how we get involved with the different projects that you're mentioning, and kind of how it all pans out and how it works. You mentioned bylaws. I'm thinking, okay, the word bylaw, what exactly does that mean? So I've read plenty of municipal codes in my day, but just got to re-educate myself on some of the terms that you guys, I'm sure, are used to. So I think I have a lot of questions, but I guess I'll plan on picking it up incrementally a little bit.
To the chair, if I may.
Yeah.
And this applies to all the candidates that we have here. Don't get too scared or taken aback by some of the kind of jargony language. Mike, you're an engineer. You have your own jargon over in large infrastructure projects. We have our same jargon here when it comes to bylaws. Notice they're not. It's not nearly as scary as people think. You, of all people, you're an engineer. You're a smart guy. It's not hard. And you also have plenty of folks that are experienced board members. Silly staff like myself is also here to help. And this goes to all the candidates that we have here. Really, this is not a situation where I want anyone to feel like they have to fend for themselves. The board works as a cohesive unit, and we're not going to teach you how to swim by throwing you off the boat. We'll at least give you arm floaties before throwing you off the boat. It's not that bad. It's not that bad. So don't be afraid. And asking a lot of questions, that's the best place to start. Out of undergraduate, I joined my local planning board whilst still an undergraduate. And that's where I cut my teeth on it there. And after the time I finished, that's really what solidified my desire to work in planning, really. So if a younger me can be terrified and do it and do just fine, you'll do just fine too. So don't worry. That's all I got.
Yeah, I can just add to that, Mike, I kind of came a similar situation. When I moved to Bolton, 2015, I think, bought my first house here, had lived in some different areas, had never had any experience with, town government or anything. And, I just happened to see a ad in the paper for a position and came to a meeting and, have kind of learned from other members of the board, town planner, town administrator, other town departments. And so it's not, there's things you learn and discuss, but there's nothing, there's no particular prerequisites for the role. So you definitely pick up things and learn from those others. So had a similar experience. And then I just a little bit more, maybe I should have said this at the beginning. Yeah, so we do have, typically there's 2 meetings a month, which are usually the second and fourth Wednesday of the month, although we set the schedule usually every 6 months and sometimes make some adjustments. In the summer, we usually only have 1 meeting in, like July and August. In November and December with holidays, we only have usually 1 meeting. So it's 1 or 2 meetings a month. Occasionally, in a rare situation, we have an additional meeting if something is really pressing that's come up. That's only happened a couple of times in the time here. It's a 5-member board, and we also have usually 5 elected members and then an associate position. So currently, where the associate position has been open for a bit. Bob was an associate. One of the other members moved out of town and stepped down, and Bob took over that position. So we have that open, and then the elected terms are 5 years, and my term is actually coming up this year in May, and I'm not planning to run for another term because I'm most likely going to be moving out of town for personal reasons this year. Nothing to do with, I love Bolton and the planning board, nothing to do with that. So anyway, that's the other. So we kind of do have 2 positions, and I don't know, because I don't think anyone is technically running, right, Todd, for the role, and I'm not sure if they can at this point. I don't know what the status is there. Sorry, Todd, we can't. I think you're mute.
Sorry, I got some work going on in the background. That's correct. It does get a little sticky. I need to reach out and talk with Pam Powell, the town clerk, to get the exact mechanism of this right. I think by the time that we have everything settled up, I think everything should be fine. But really, I don't think we're going to be appointing anyone here right now, because that would be for someone, the incomplete term. They would finish out the duration of that term, and then the other position would have to get appointed by BOS. So it gets a little bit sticky, and I'll get some better guidance and clarity from Pam Powell, our town clerk, because it gets a little sticky when it gets to be like this. Not often do you have 2 particular positions open at the same time with one other incoming as well. So I'll get some guidance from Pam, and we'll go through from there.
Okay, yeah, that's great. I think usually in the past, like the associate position is something the board itself votes on. Obviously, permanent position usually goes through town election, and then if someone leaves, it's the whole select board process. So yeah, if you can figure out what we need to do, then we can figure that out. But that's just a little bit of background. I probably should have provided at the beginning.
It gets to a little bit of the technicalities, just so any of the candidates here are curious. The difference primarily between associate and standard position is that associate members, they are able to act and vote on special permits in case any member of the board is either not present, or has recused themselves, or is ineligible to act for any other reason. Say, for example, they were absent for the entire meeting, the entire hearing that's being voted upon. They are not able to act because that particular member wasn't present, whereas the associate member was. Then in that case, the associate member would be able to vote in their stead at that point. So that's really the only difference between the 2. So I don't want you to think that one is somehow lesser than. That's not quite the same. It's just not quite it's not quite accurate to say that. But that's the only real hair to split between the 2. So I wouldn't get too caught up on titles there.
Yeah, thanks very much, Todd. And just also myself, I initially joined the board as the associate member, and then the following year, one of the elected members stepped down, and then I was appointed, by the board and the select board to fill that term, and then ran for a term. So that's how things usually happen. We just kind of got into a situation where, someone left in the fall. We hadn't, no one really been interested in the associate position until then, and now we're coming up to the town election again.
Exactly. When I was in the middle of undergraduate and I joined the board in my community at the time in Barrie, I was an associate there too. It's a great way to cut your teeth, to learn kind of the rhythm of how these boards work, to kind of brush up a little bit on Robert's rules and exactly the method and protocol that is expected to be obeyed during the course of town meeting and town government. It's really a great place to learn the ropes without feeling too much of the thumb screws of pressure put onto you, if that makes sense. So I wouldn't look down upon the associate member, because I started off as one, just like Pete did.
All right, so Mike, do you have any more questions for us or anything else, and then we can?
I do not. Unless you guys have questions for me.
Not myself. Anyone else on the board have anything they'd like to ask Mike? All right. Well, thanks very much for that introduction. Austin, maybe if you can kind of do the same, just tell us a little bit about yourself. That's not an interview or anything like that. Just trying to say hello.
Yeah, absolutely. So good evening, everybody. My name is Austin Groner. My wife and myself and my 2 kids moved to Bolton actually just under 2 years ago. And currently I'm actually a scientist with Amazon. And I have a very, very interesting background. I think none of it really applies to planning board, operations, but I'm a physicist by trade and spent a little bit of time in Philadelphia as an aerospace engineer. Just interested in joining the planning board to get involved with local government and to see how things work and to be a part of the community moving forward.
Oh, great. Yeah, I'm a chemist myself, of all things. So
very cool.
It's actually great. We have different kind of minds and different people and different perspectives. And I think, at least in my time in the board, worked with a number of different people. It's great to have different backgrounds, and we've always worked very well, together. Everyone who's been on the board has been great to work with in my experience. So, great. Do you have any questions, for us, Austin, or anything we can light you on?
I don't think so. I guess in terms of moving forward, I think it was sort of Todd sort of mentioned what the process would be in terms of filling these positions, but. I'm just curious about the timeline about when these positions are expected to be filled and what the process is again, I guess.
Yeah, sure. So I think Todd will look into it a little bit, because we're in a little unique situation. Usually what happens is the associate role comes open, right? And then we advertise for that, and often either don't get someone for a while or get one person who comes in interested, and then we appoint that role. So we just have to figure out what is with the 2 roles and what we should do. So Todd will look into that, and then I guess what I'd ask both of you to do is just we don't have a lot on the agenda tonight, but you're welcome to stay on for the meeting and think about it. If you're still interested, just shoot Todd an email, at some point. And, the other thing you can do is feel free to come to our next, meeting, which will be the 19th, I believe.
That's right.
You can come to any meeting you want to just get an idea. But if we have more information by then, we'll put something on the agenda to specifically discuss, or of course, you're welcome to just come to the meeting. I think the town election is right at the beginning of May. So
right.
That'll be before the town election, and we just have to figure out what to do with that permanent position, because no one was nominated during the caucus. So I don't think there's going to be any name on the ballot, and technically probably people get written in, but I don't know what happens. So that's something that Todd just has to sort out. But I'd say, feel free to stay or to reach out to any of us. If questions come up, let us know, think about it. Let us know if you would the other thing you can always do is go back and watch on the YouTube channel some previous planning board meetings, which some of those will put you right to sleep. And then there's others where there were some, contesting or, disagreements with residents and stuff, which can be a little interesting. So anyway, I can definitely say it's been, a great way for me to learn. I've really enjoyed my time on the board. I don't, really have a lot of time to get extremely involved in Bolton, but this has been a way that I can do a little bit. It's not a huge time commitment. Even as the chair, which is a little bit more time commitment because there's some communication in the background, it's still it's basically the meetings, right? And sometimes there's some communication that goes out before that, or occasionally there's other things, but you can obviously, it's as much as you want to put into it. There's plenty of opportunity to do more things if you have more time. And the other thing is, because it is a 5-member board and we have one alternate associate member, if you miss a meeting, I travel for work, I miss meetings, sometimes everyone does, right? That happens. So it's not I think it's a good way to learn a little bit about the town and town government, but it's by no means anything that's gonna derail the rest of your life. So
I can attest to that. It does. I try to bother Pete behind the scenes at a minimum, and he's the only one I really reach out to for the most part outside of meeting hours. So meetings themselves, that's the lion's share of any sort of time commitment. But he's also correct. Pete's also correct in that what you get out of this is largely reliant upon what kind of time or what kind of effort you put into it. If you ever want to sit down and come to my office and talk planning, I will not be quiet. I will take every ounce or every minute that you give me. I will talk about it. Ask any one of the members here; they'll probably attest and call me annoying, and they would not be wrong. But either way, if the only 2 requirements that you really have here is you have to be a registered voter and a resident of town. That's 1, and you have to have the best wishes of Bolton at heart. That's 2. That's it. Everything else you can learn on the job. Both of you chaps seem very capable, very intelligent people. You'll do great. And it really, I don't want this to scare anyone away because you seem like you'd be great fits. So worry not.
God, this is probably what you're looking into, but at this point, like we're past the like we're pulling papers and it's going to be on the election. So anybody can kind of do like a write-in campaign.
Yeah, I would, you're exactly right, Eric.
But what I'm saying is, we have 2 spots technically open, but if somebody at the election, writes, a few people write in their name, they'll be on the board, I guess.
Yeah.
So I would suggest if one of you want to just go on community and say, hey, write me in or something, you'd probably sail right in.
Probably. Yeah, probably. I would definitely reach out to Pam Powell, the town clerk, and just kind of give her a heads up saying, hey, I know I was at the agenda on the date of the 5th. However, if I get, half dozen of my friends to write me in or whichever, would that satisfy the provisions of the Mass law? She would be the one that would know that, and she'd be able to give you the best answers. It really doesn't require much. We had one selectman, if nothing else, in Barrie get written in with 30 votes, and that's for a selectman position, for God's sakes. It's direct democracy at its finest. It's what Massachusetts does,
One last question. Are both positions need to be voted on, or is the associate position something that doesn't require to be voted in?
Yeah, the associate position does not require that. That's usually, it's just the planning board itself appoints the associate. I think it might have to be confirmed by the select board. I can never remember, but there's no town process.
Yeah, it needs to be given the thumbs up by Board of Selectmen, but usually that's just a procedural item.
Right. But then, usually there's 5-year terms, and usually there's 1 seat coming up each year. Sometimes with people leaving and stuff, that changes, but usually 1 seat comes up for election each year. And sometimes people will just run again. The incumbent will run again. Like when I ran, I was unopposed, which is pretty common. And then after the annual town meeting at the beginning of May, the board will reorganize each year. So we'll vote a new chair and vice chair. And usually we just kind of take turns. So, this year I've been chair, which is not necessarily the final year in your term, but sometimes it works out that way too. I mean, but the board can decide on what we want to do. But certainly when I first joined the board, I was not throwing my hat in the ring to be chair. I said, I'd be happy to do it at some point, but I'd like to learn more, and that's usually kind of how it works. So that'll happen in right after the town election in one of the early May meetings. The board will kind of reorganize.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, thank you both so much for coming, and it's a pleasure to meet you and talk to you. I hope we can, talk and work together again, and just please be in touch with Todd. Let him know your thoughts and your interest if you lean more towards the associate position or the the full position. Let him know that, and he can check on that. And I think Eric makes a good point, right? If one of you is interested in that position and because of the timing can't actually get on the ballot, maybe kind of arranging that for getting as many write-ins as possible, because other than that, I guess anyone could come and write a few people in. So we can figure out what the dynamic, the logistics of that are. And Todd, you can listen on
And
this.
Also, to both of you, feel free to drop by my office if you ever want to chat or get any sort of item elucidated or clarified in any way. I will be out tomorrow. I have a doctor's appointment, but aside from that, feel free to drop by my office anytime it's open to the public. Okay, I'm here to help.
Yeah, and don't overlook the town website.
Mhm.
There's a great deal of information on that, and don't be intimidated by it when the minute you start looking at bylaws and regulations, but to get a sense of the purview and the scope and the activities of the planning board, that's a good place to look.
Very true.
All right. Well, thank you both. Feel free to stay for the remaining meeting, although we don't have much. Or if you have to drop off, we understand that as well, and we'll be in touch.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Nice to meet you.
Likewise.
Okay, so now we're on to public hearings, and does it matter if we take them out of order to continue the second one, or should we do the first one first?
The chair's prerogative. You can set that agenda.
Okay, so for the second item, which is the Phosphid for South Bolton Road, they just requested a continuance. So they didn't say a time, but I just say let's do it to the next meeting, and you can reach out, in the interim, Todd, and if they want to continue it again, just ask them to let us know when, and we can do that. So someone's open to making a motion for that.
So,
I think our next meeting's
before we do that, are we still like I said, I'm not going to be here on the 19th.
That's right.
Eric, were you going to be here? Is there, we need to see if there's quorum for that night.
Actually, I am going to be here now.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
So you want to keep that meeting?
I mean, if you want to change that, I don't care.
No, that's fine. So I'll make a motion to continue the definitive subdivision plan Phosphid, Daniel Matha, for assessors map 2C parcel 23 until April 19th.
Very good. I'll begin a roll call vote. I'll begin with Chair Driscoll.
Aye.
Barr.
Aye.
Bob.
Aye.
Eric.
Aye.
And Mike.
Aye.
Very good. With that, motion carries. Thank you.
Okay, great. So to go to the other public hearing, which is the continued Scenic Road Shade Tree hearing for 7-8 Meadow Road. And last time we continued because they needed to go before the select board. given that they wanted to put the drainage in the public right of way.
Mhm.
And from our conversation the other day, Todd, my understanding is that was denied.
Correct, sir. They went and gave their proposal seeking positive permission to conduct the work that they proposed. That request was denied uniformly. So they're likely going to have to literally go back to the drawing board and come up with a different engineering approach. And I haven't received anything or any correspondence from them to my office. So I suggest continuing this item at least until the next meeting. And in the interim, I'll be reaching out to them to see if they have any alternative approaches to the problems we've outlined.
Okay, yeah, I mean, maybe that's fine. I'm happy to do that to the next meeting, but maybe you can tell them that we need to hear from them, whether they want to keep this hearing open or,
Mhm.
you know, we're gonna close it. And, you know, I know if we vote to deny it, then that makes it more challenging for them if they want to bring that proposal.
Yes, there would be a 2-year cool down period to that because it would be a repetitive motion at that point
Gotcha, yeah. So maybe they might want to withdraw
without prejudice. Yes.
prejudice or whatever the right terminology is to sort that out.
Yep, yep.
So, okay. Yeah, so I'm fine to continue, and then if you can find that out
Yeah.
before our next meeting, if we don't hear from them, then we might
Sure.
have to make a decision then, but.
Sure. I'll shake the tree. I'll see what comes off. Okay.
Okay, I will make a motion to continue to the scenic road shade tree hearing for lot 7 through 8 Meadow Road until April 19th.
Second.
Very good. I'll take a roll call vote. I'll begin with Chair Driscoll.
Aye.
Jim,
Aye.
Bob,
All right,
Eric,
I,
and Mike.
Aye.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. Motion carries.
Okay, well, that was easy. We have reached the end of our agenda. This is the second meeting in a row that it's been
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
very,
Wow.
very, very painless after a few months.
Mercifully short.
It's kind of eerie. I don't quite trust it. To the chair, I do see Mr. Moroskin is here. Oh, he was here. Oh, hi. Hi, Adam. How are you, sir? If you like, we can address him, given that we overlooked him when the other two candidates were present.
Oh, sure, absolutely.
Sorry, I don't mean to put you on the spot, sir. I really don't.
No. I think you're talking to me, but no, I'm just fine.
I suppose I'm talking to the other Mr. Moroskin, but yeah, sure. Let's go with that.
All good. I guess introduction is at hand. Is that the ask?
Yes, sure. So you're also interested in the planning board position.
So maybe I wanted to at least attend a meeting and kind of see where I felt, how I felt about it. But yeah, I think the answer was would definitely like to get more involved and do something here in town. Moved during the pandemic, came in from Pittsburgh, lived in Nashville before that. Worked in commercial real estate right out of, or commercial construction right out of school, and then ended up in retail and have spent the last 15 plus years with companies like Dollar General and regional grocers, and now I'm with CVS. So I primarily work in merchandising. Grew up as the son of a landscaper, so got to do civil engineering and landscaping work, and probably a little bit knowledgeable, but really have no core concept of what goes on your meeting. So the meeting I just heard was pretty basic, I think, according to most of your responses. So that could be a good thing, or it could be a bad thing to have that be my experience to kind of watch and see and start to feel this out. But glad to be part of town, and figured I needed to start pulling my weight a little bit, which is probably pretty similar to some of the other responses I heard here, and thought this might be a good way to consider doing that. So that's a little bit about me.
Oh, great. Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. Pleasure to have you. In our meeting, and not said, yeah, tonight a few hearings. Oftentimes hearings do get continued for various reasons. Sometimes at the request of the applicant, or other things. These two have been going on for a few months now. So we've had in terms of typical meetings, we'll often have a public hearing or two. The ones that were scheduled for tonight, one One is a scenic road shade tree clearing. So most of the roads in Bolton are considered scenic roads, and if you want to cut down any trees in the public right of way or remove any stone wall for, say, a new driveway or subdivision, or whatever, you have to have a scenic road or shade tree hearing. So that's something that comes up. The other one is for a subdivision. I think it's a 6-lot subdivision that we've been in discussions with for a while. Usually an applicant will come with sort of a preliminary plan. We kind of go through that, give them feedback, and then they come for the definitive actual permit, which we've been working with this this group for a little bit of time on that. It's sometimes drags out over several months as it kind of goes back and forth as they submit plans and we look at them and provide feedback and they get more information. We do often for new subdivisions, try to go on a site visit sometimes. So for this one, actually, we went out there, I think it was last fall. A few of us went out for a site visit. So that's one other thing I should have mentioned before that occasionally comes up. I've probably only done 5 or 6 in my time on the board, but occasionally, whether it's a subdivision in progress where we want to go out and take a look, or it's always nice for a new subdivision to go out and kind of walk around and just get a feel for what they're trying to do. It helps in the meetings. So those are kind of things that come up, and then monitoring certain some of the ongoing projects. Sometimes that's been one. There's a couple of subdivisions that have been a little bit challenging that have been going on for some time, and early this year we had a number of meetings about those, and we're still working on resolving some of those issues. And then it's kind of referring to the planning aspect too, right? Of what can we kind of do as we plan for the future of Bolton, and what things can they get the board gets involved in. So it's a bit of a mix, in terms of what business comes before us, is brought before us that we need to address, and then when there's less business, then we work on some other things. But obviously we have to kind of Todd has to do some pre-work to bring stuff to us, and that's what we were kind of discussing as we think about potential things. So the town meetings are usually in May, and we're not bringing any articles to town meeting this year, but usually those articles, there's kind of a lengthy process for doing that, which first is discussion and figuring out what the board wants to do, and then drafting, and sometimes public outreach, and then gets to the point of, okay, we want to bring this article, and then there's public hearings that usually have to happen in the beginning of the year, January, February timeframe, and then votes by the planning board and select board advisory committee and all that. So it's a lengthy process. So basically, almost by the end of the calendar year, you kind of have to know what you want to bring for the town meeting in May, so that the winter and spring months are in the preamble. So that's why we're kind of starting to discuss things, want to start discussing things for next year soon. So a little bit of a rambling explanation of some different things that come before us, but you never know. You never know what's gonna.
Let's just call it a crash course. Throwing them off the boat and all that fun stuff. But that's exactly right. To the chair, if you don't mind me chiming in.
Go ahead.
That's exactly right. A lot of what's done here, it's more in the sense of balancing private property rights versus public obligation and public good, all the while keeping growth management kind of the center crux of everything. Growth cannot be stopped, but it can be managed well and managed effectively for the greatest good for the greatest number. Growth, I like to call it, it's neighborhood and metropolitan development. It's effectively a wave. You either learn how to ride the wave lest you get crushed underneath it. There are plenty of core examples of how poor growth management can really kind of choke the life out of what would be a vibrant urban space. Bob and I are very clear and familiar with the town of Leviton, New Jersey. That is effectively I won't call it a cautionary tale, but it's very much a cautionary tale. It's something that it's, if nothing else, you learn what to do by recognizing what you shouldn't see done. And Leviton, New Jersey is very much that example. So I'll be sharing a bunch of material with everyone's kind of digestion as we go forward. And I'll be sharing some of the cutting edge of best planning practice now that I think would be a good kind of a good resonant fit for the neighborhood fabric that is Bolton. And from there, I'll probably inundate you with a bunch of things. And from there, whatever kind of piques your interest, then we can explore those concepts and techniques a little bit deeper, whether it's something fancy like a form-based code revision, which I highly doubt that would go through on its own, or something like a 40R overlay, which is effectively zoning on top of existing zoning. We have some of that here already, but I don't want to throw too many complicated things at you guys. But we have a lot of tools in our toolbox for managing growth and kind of preserving the essence of what Bolton is, while also accommodating the rights of private owners, as well as really regarding the folks that live in this town, keeping the spirit of Bolton. That's really kind of my spiel. Sorry to ramble a bit, but I look forward to working with anyone who wants to work with me.
Great, thanks very much, Todd, and thank you all very much again for coming and talking to us. We really, really appreciate it, and hope let us know what you're interested in. Going forward, we'll look into a little bit of what we need to do on the town side, and our next meeting is in 2 weeks on the 19th. So you're welcome to come back and join. And of course, if we have anything specific to discuss related to positions, we'll put that on the agenda. Okay. There's nothing else, unless anyone else on the board has something they'd like to discuss, we can take a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Seconded.
Very good. Begin a roll call vote. I'll begin with Pete Driscoll,
Aye.
James Barr,
Aye.
Robert Romer,
Aye.
Eric Nayland,
Aye.
and Michael Gore.
Aye.
Fantastic. Motion passes. Thank you very much, everyone. And thank you to our new friends and guests. Thank you.
Have a good night, everyone.
Thanks.
Aye.
Take care. Bye-bye.